Hello and welcome to another episode of Five Alarm Task Force. If you're watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, well, you already heard our intro. I'm Steve Green, your host. Happy to be here with you and happy to have you here with us as always. And my returning guest today is a gentleman that some said to me, I don't think you're going to want him on your show. Well, we had a kind of little misunderstanding on social media about a year and a half ago during the real heated talk about PFAS. And we finally found out that we were really both on the same page and we're doing the exact same thing, advocating to our brothers and sisters, both career and volunteer, about the dangers of our gear. So my guest, and I'm happy to welcome him back, joining me again is Jim Bernecka. He recently retired as a firefighter paramedic with the Dayton, Ohio Fire Department, not too far from where I lived for that year and a half in Cincinnati. He was with them since 2001. He currently resides as the health and safety coordinator. You still doing that for the union?
No, I'm not.
Okay, retired from he was the health and safety coordinator for Dayton Fire Local 136. He has been strongly involved in the fight against occupational cancer for 15 years. He has presented on cancer prevention throughout the U.S. and Canada. His training has been certified through the ISFSI, as we know, IFSI, TCP program. He had his own weekly podcast on firefight health and wellness called the 25 Live, which, are they still available on social media?
They still are. Oh,
still
yeah.
there. Folks,
it's a great resource library.
That's great. And
really,
you really should go back and listen. Again, the name is the 25 Live. And after he and I kind of made up, gave little kisses on the cheek across social media, I started listening to it even more. And I can't advise you or suggest, if you're concerned about our bunker gear and what it's doing to us and what's in it and why we're still using it and not have new gear, this is the podcast to listen to, the Live 25 with Jim. He does have another show, APS Radio, on fire engineering, so you can tune in with them. He is also, you were a technical committee member on 1585, right?
Still am.
Still am. You still are. Okay. At NFPA 1585 contamination control. And of course, everything else before COVID, that was a lot of contamination. And then boom, this tsunami of COVID came onto us. Jim, it's great to have you back. Thanks for joining me again.
Steve, it's an honor to be back. Thanks for the re-invite.
Well, it's like I said, we all made up, and we were fighting for the same team, for the same goal, is to keep our firefighters, again, whether they're career, volunteer, WUI, makes no difference, keep our firefighters healthy and safe to the best of our ability. And we're just trying to draft more and more people into it. So as we're refreshing some really important topics on firefighter, the cancer initiative and the behavioral health initiatives this season, I want to bring you back and see, because you are very much in the know, still in, and I wanted to bring you back to share where we are today. You know, a year and a half later, we've made some strides in getting the word out there. I think people know that it's not a hoax anymore, that this is definitely something. And now that it's exploded and people know that it's worldwide, and our average citizens who cook breakfast in the mornings or dinners at night with nonstick frying pans, the old style nonstick frying pans, we were cooking with PFAS every meal that we served from those frying pans and had no idea, but we were feeding ourselves and our families. So this is not anything new other than the discovery of it being in our bunker gear, but this stuff has been around since the 50s. And nobody wanted to tell us about it until we had a few people, as Jim said just before we started recording, there was this lovely young lady from Massachusetts who said, what the hell's going on with my husband and the fire department and the fire service? And that's our dear friend, our mutual dear friend, Diane Cotter. and her husband Paul, who, without them, we wouldn't be any closer to looking at the problem than we are, thanks to them.
Absolutely.
You know,
You
and I know,
called her lovely. She is lovely, but I call her the crazy lady.
uh,
That's who she was initially to me, and
she's the mama bear,
yeah,
you know,
and
and
she still is crazy, but I still love her.
uh, we all do.
We're all crazy, Steve.
That's true. You want to go in this business? Yeah, we have to be, right? That's what a lot of other people say. So here we are now, about a year and a half since you were last on, and we were on together. That really big, that was probably most explosive time in the PFAS whistleblowing. Where have you seen? We've both actually gone through our own um, uh, personal ailments over that same time period. Um, and we're both doing a bit better, thankfully. But I think that we didn't let, for the most part, we did our best, Jim and I know lots of others who were not doing all that great health wise, still did podcasts, recorded them, guested on them to get this message out to our brothers and sisters. Because we saw, and Jim was very much into this because of his positions, but we really saw the handwriting on the wall, what this was going to mean for us if somebody didn't do something about it. And thank God for the mama bear and her not giving up, as difficult as that climb was for her, and everything she did, she stuck with it. And she is really, I wish there was an Oscar or an Emmy or a GOAT for Diane and Paul, because in this battle, nobody is more deserving of that than the two of them are. Because without them, we'd still be getting sick. We'd still attribute it to, oh, stuff is burning, it's more carcinogens. Yeah, we knew that. We knew that since, God, I started in 2016, and we knew it back then. We knew about HSF as well. But how come we didn't know about PFAS? Because nobody wanted us to, right? So where are we today?
Oh, it's a different world, Steve. Yeah, I mean, it really is. You were kind of talking about the heat of the moment, the TIA that the IFF put in, trying to get rid of that UV light test to try to get rid of just having to have these chemicals within our gear. That TIA didn't pass, but at this point, they're getting really close to finally taking that UV light test out on their own. I think the pressure has finally gotten to them, to where those committee members realize that they can't just pretend and give us that false science that this stuff is okay and it's in trace amounts and all the industry slang that they were throwing out at us. The jig is up, I guess you could say. So,
Yeah.
and on top of that, some of the manufacturers have actually been, and I say really some, I really should say just Steadfast in particular. They've been proactive. They realized that this is a problem, and they came out and FDIC debuted their moisture barrier that was fluorine free. So it's just a matter of time. Really, I think any time now. I know they were trying to get everything by the end of this year, but firefighters should finally be able to purchase gear that doesn't have any PFAS in it. And there was a time in which I didn't know if that was ever going to be reality, but it's just a couple months away from being that. And that's really with just people like you, people like me, just kind of the Avengers, this grassroots effort of just calling people out on it and saying enough is enough. It shouldn't be, profit over our health. And You had the IFF get involved, and they swung their big stick with about 340,000 members worth, and it's finally getting to the point where it's definitely a new day is dawn. Like, change is happening, and it's good change. It's positive change for us, but it's a heck of a fight to get to this point.
Right. And the cost was far too high,
Absolutely.
and not just our brothers and sisters that we've lost, but every diagnosis. You and I were just talking about before we started record that, I was able to convince my hematologist to help me get the PFAS testing done. And it was very interesting that at my last appointment with him, which was about 6 weeks ago or so, he said to me, I really thought that was going to be the answer to your illness. He says, I know. I said, well, I was only in 8 years. He goes, I know it was only 8 years. You told me that. He says, but he said, you told me that you worked a lot of fires. And I did. I did. I worked a lot of fires in those 8 years in the two departments. But what might have set me a little bit apart, especially in my first department, was that I never got any contamination with AFFF, even though our chief was a very beloved figure by 3M, and we probably carried somewhere between 150 and 200 5-gallon pails of AFFF either on our apparatus or in our storeroom. And at that time, our chief was considered one of the specialists in the country on flammable liquid fires. And we had, it's now the city of Greensboro. They took over that part of the county of Guilford County. But right in our first district was one of the largest at that time finished product gasoline farms in the country, right across the street from the airport, and they were in our area. And so he was the one who, in those days, got the companies to put in subsurface applicators and a device like that, and became very big with AFFF. I recorded it on video several times, but luckily never had got any on the skin or on the inside of my gear or anything like that. But that was just luck. That wasn't because I knew I had to avoid it or anything like that. We know now what PFAS does. And I guess the most difficult truth is that we really can't do anything about it where it exists in our world today. In so many water streams, they believe 85-90% of the water in the world is contaminated with PFAS. Dishwater, so many things that is still threatening us. But when you have knowledge and you have people fighting back with that knowledge, I think that gives at least us in the fire service, and we hope those other people who follow the concept of PFAS, and there are great groups out there, especially in this country. We know that there are wonderful organizations that are really working to purify water for everybody, not just because of PFAS, because there are other contaminants, and we need them as part of this army. You mentioned, you said, you used that term, and I think that's who we were. We were like the Minutemen in the founding of this country. Somebody had to fight the battle, and I guess as firefighters, we fight the big battles so that other people don't. And this was one that we took on, and I think we know. I shouldn't say I think. We know our voices were heard. And as you said, there has been change. Do you think, or do you see that if it hadn't been for the several lawsuits that have filed both against NFPA and against the manufacturers. We were all very lucky that Attorney Rob Bilott took on the case of PFAS affecting firefighters. And with his success and possibly some acquiescence by the manufacturers, we'll see our brothers and sisters who are still serving getting new gear at no cost to their communities or themselves, because we're owed this. Every firefighter today is owed by them at least one new set of gear.
Yeah. Gosh, think about the money that's involved in that. How many firefighters are there? And they all need new gear that doesn't have these chemicals in it. I mean, it's mind-boggling to even picture the number, but I know that the IFF has been lobbying for, knowing that this is coming, knowing that we're going to have the answer here very soon for fluorine-free, PFAS-free gear. They've been trying to lobby Congress and trying to make sure that there's some money set aside that can help pay for this, because, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're a big department or a little department, like, that is going to be a huge cost to just completely, whatever you had, dispose of that, and then get this new gear, this gear that, you're usually budgeting for just every 10 years. And now it's like, doesn't matter if you bought gear last year, you're going to try to replace it. So
yeah,
that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But it's a good problem to have, I guess. I believe. And then, I think the other thing that's really helped us out regarding all this stuff is really just the general public becoming aware of these chemicals. And I think a lot of that has to do, you mentioned Rob Bilott, Dark Waters, I think, helped out tremendously. But I mean, there's, in my local newspaper, Dane Daily News, I would venture to say about every 3 or 4 weeks on Sunday on the front page, they're doing something about PFAS and really more than anything, the water system. We have Wright-Patt Air Force Base right next to us. So, right. I mean, it's always going to be an issue, all the wells, I mean, everything like that. But because of that, like this topic isn't just for firefighters. It's so much bigger than that. It is everybody. The water we drink, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, how we cook our food. I mean, there's almost no way of getting around this stuff, unfortunately. And right. It's becoming, when you're self-aware, you can kind of realize what to buy and what not to buy. But it's a process to get educated to that point, to know how you can try to avoid these chemicals. And even with that, you can't avoid all of them.
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, of course, first and foremost, you want to make sure that you're drinking safe water in your community. Attorney Bilott was, that person that helped the people in West Virginia with that horrible pollution that they suffered from. And, he had all the proof. The case was, was proven, and those people got some help. But listen, we know all too well that no matter how much money, you can't bring back a loved one, or you can't heal somebody who is too sick with a disease that they didn't look for, didn't ask for, that they're innocent. Now, yes, people have said this to me on social media, and I acknowledge it. You can't blame everybody for everything. And we're not, in my book. We we know simply from documents uncovered when PFAS was created by a couple of the big chemical companies that they knew it was carcinogenic and they decided to use it anyway. That was a business decision, we have been told. It's difficult to accept that somebody would condemn people to be ill or to die for the almighty dollar. It's not unique. They're not the only ones who've ever done this. But with this discovery of PFAS, they knew what they were doing. I guess it's when, like, you teach your little son or daughter when they're growing up and they're still young, the difference between right and wrong. I don't know if anybody ever taught those men and women from those companies the difference between right and wrong.
Morals,
Exactly.
ethical. I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, you're right on. Like, just anybody who has a conscience, that's not the way I know you function and think, and certainly not the way I do things. But yeah, somebody having that information and actually looking the other way, like, that's a whole new level of greed that I can't even imagine.
I agree. I mean, they've made billions of dollars, if not more, billions of dollars over the years. God, I started in 77, so that's 40 years ago. Just think in that time, how much they've made. And now take that back from another 20 some odd years and add that to the mix. They're very wealthy people. And I don't have a problem against, most corporations, big corporations. But when you know that somebody who is making a product to help protect people, I'm not even, yes, in the water or anything like that, but help protect people who are willing to lay down their lives to protect others. And you use a product that you know is a known health risk into the gear that those men and women are willing to wear to protect them to the best of their ability from the job they do in their communities. And then learning, as we did just a couple of years ago, that gear has been poisoning us, at least in our gear, at least till 77. It might be longer, but I think that's the first year that Dr. Peasley in his examinations and the samples that he used, I think that's as far back as he was able to go. But, so think of all our brothers and sisters since 1977 who have served. Career, volunteer, part pay, WUI. Because what we do is a calling. You've heard that before, and it may sound trite to many of you, but to us, it's not trite. I'm a kid who grew up in suburban Boston. I met a firefighter when I was 7 years old because we had a little woods fire behind our house. He was a nice guy. Everybody else went to watch them put it out. I went down to the engine. He showed me how his pump was working, gave me a lollipop. And from that moment on, I love firefighters. Didn't plan on being a firefighter. That just happened the way life does. Takes us down a different path. And I don't regret any of that other than, getting hurt. But that wasn't anybody's fault in reality. But when our firefighters get sick, from doing the very job that we love. And that, I know there's a lot of discussion today about emotion in the fire service, but we loved what we did. My buddy I met, and if you're not watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, and Jim is nodding his head in agreement. He was a firefighter paramedic with Dayton. And, we loved what we did. To me, I guess maybe it's my background in the religion and planning to be a rabbi and stuff like that, that I believe people should be treated with respect and humanity, no matter their station in life. Because that's the way I wanted to be treated. That's what my dad, may rest in peace, taught the three boys in my family. Be nice to people and they'll be nice to you. And when you go out of your way to say, I want to be nice to my community, I'm not just taking care of my family, I'm taking care of my community. And yes, I know there's a risk, but I'm willing to accept that possibility because it's important for me to protect my family and the people who live in the property in my community. And then we're thrown up against the dartboard as the target. I just have no patience for that.
No, this is not something we have a lot of time for. Doing this job itself, exposed to who knows what. Every fire is different. The shift work. All this stuff adds up, and it equals a shorter lifespan. And this is just, this chemical that we're talking about is another contributing factor to that. I always believe that you really try to do everything you possibly can to reduce your exposures. And there's some that you just can't avoid. This is hopefully one that we can avoid here shortly. And we can check that off our list and worry about everything else that we're exposed to. But it's just another contributing factor. And when you have all these factors and you add them up, it means, I see it, and I know you see it. You make it to retirement and you last about 5 years and you die. And then, I look at all that and I just go, well, what was the point? What was the point of all that? You want to be able to have a happy and healthy career and also be able to enjoy your retirement and have a happy and healthy retirement. But too often, I'd say, this stuff catches up to you, and it's right around the time you retire.
Yeah.
So it's imperative. No matter where you're at in your career, try to reduce your exposures. But it's super imperative to the new kids that are starting.
Right.
You and I we could claim being naive because nobody ever told us anything about this stuff. That's not the case now. When you start off as a firefighter, you're aware from the start that occupational cancer is a big deal, that behavioral health is a big deal. There's no excuses now. I love teaching the recruits, but I know it goes in one ear and won't out the other, because I tell them, your very first shift, there's a decent chance you get a fire. In Dayton, we average a fire a day, working structure fire a day. It's crazy. It's most per capita for the state of Ohio. And so it's a good chance that first day you could have a fire, and you're going to be, expect to be the first one in there and the last one out there. And when it comes time to do overhaul, you going to put your mask on? I think you should, but you may see other people on your crew that aren't, but I'm telling you right now, you should, and here's why. And so a lot of times that very first day, they're given that choice. And sometimes they make the right choice, sometimes they don't. I think more often than not, they kind of give into the peer pressure and they don't put their mask on. They add all those exposures.
It's not just that. I don't know. I think I've mentioned this once or twice on the podcast, but when I was probably in my third or fourth month in this volunteer fire department in North Carolina, and I was there for lunch. I was eating my lunch there that day, and we had a call for a car fire. And so my buddy and I, young kid I met then, still my best friend today, and we jumped on the engine, and the chief came down. And in those days, we didn't mask up for the car fire. So we're knocking down this fire in this small car, but it was cooking pretty well. And suddenly the wind comes around almost 180 degrees. And he and I took this snootful of smoke in. And the chief yelled, back out, back out, back out. And we shut down the hose. We backed out for a minute, and we were both coughing and puking and stuff like that. And he says, okay, you guys okay to finish it off? You got most of it out? And we said, yeah. He goes, okay. He says, all right, go to the engine, get 2 Scott packs and put them on. Chief, this thing is still, just go to the engine and grab the 2 Scott packs and put them on. We said, okay. And when we finished, the chief said, all right, gentlemen, he goes, I'm sorry you got that snootful. That's going to happen maybe, time to time. But from now on, I'm going to make it SOG that all vehicle fires, everyone's going to Scott up. That's it. That's my decision. This is like December of 77, January of 77. Okay. And for the rest of my time there, and a good friend of ours who was our mentor when we were there said that rule just stayed even after he and I were gone. He said the chief kept that rule, and the chief came in after him, kept that rule. That's it. This is what we do.
That's 46 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're still all over the place. Departments that don't put on their mask when they're fighting a car fire. 46 years later.
Yeah.
I see it all the time still.
Yeah, we see it on social media, these posts. I think the 2 things that bother me the most when I see pictures of is that picture of people doing overhaul or working a fire without a vehicle fire, without an air pack on. And I just forgot the other one. That's the other thing when you get older. But it just bugs me when the information is out there. We know it. This is not like 46 years ago when we didn't know anything about firefighter cancer and carcinogens and stuff like that. But what do you get? Tell me. Tell Jim. Tell us. What do you get? What's the reason why you don't put on a Scott pack when you do it, or an air pack when you fight a vehicle fire? From the smallest little one to an RV.
Yeah. I think a lot of this, Steve, is, I don't know if, I can't remember if I ever talked to you about this or if you've heard this, but it's I think, a common knowledge thing. Like when we do this job, this crazy job in which we're the ones running into buildings, there is a certain feeling of invincibility that is installed in us. And, because we have to, that's a good thing to have with the crazy stuff and the situations that we put ourselves in. So it's good, but it also is bad because it hinders us, because we believe that, yeah, Joe got diagnosed with cancer, but that's Joe. It's not Jim. It's not Steve. And, that same invincibility can actually impair us, because we are always going to have that mindset of it's not going to happen to us till it does.
Exactly. And every loss that we note that is due in the fire service, that is not happened by God forbid, a collapse or anything like that. Just worked his 25 or her 25 years in the department. And like you said, um, they just get so blasé with the concept until they're not feeling well and they go to a doctor and doc says, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have this type of cancer. What? How did I get that? Where did that come from? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. You know, where do you think it came from? You know, I remember thinking that before the PFAS and we learned about the carcinogens, I remember thinking that, God, I brought especially when I was in the second department upstate New York, I'd bring my gear in at night into the house so that I could, before I had to go out to the cold car, 30 degrees below zero, I would be able to put my bunker gear on. So I kept it in the house. And my daughter was like 18 months old. My older one, my younger one wasn't even born at that when I started there yet. But what did I do to my kids or my wife? You know, and that's what I was petrified of. Now comes PFAS, and I said, wait a second. So not only am I dealing with the carcinogens I may have dealt with, but now there's something that I couldn't even do anything about in the freaking gear that I was wearing for 8 years. And I didn't know. So what have I done?
Yeah, Steve, it's crazy. It goes even deeper than that. I mean, you talk about, because I did similar things. Like I got with my oldest kid, I have a picture of him laying on my bunker jacket. Look at that. I'm just like, and that's now a bad example that I show. Like I have made mistakes as well, but I mean, there's more research that's coming out that's showing that because of our exposures, we're actually more likely to have kids with birth defects.
Right.
This is affecting more than just us. It's affecting our kids. And when I talk about that in front of a class, like that's when I have their attention. When I start talking about that kind of stuff. Because I think that's the other thing. We're resilient. We could take on a lot of stuff. Our shoulders are broad. Man, when you start bringing in our family, like, all right, that's kind of like a low blow. And it gets their attention. And there's, the famous line that we see in all this research, more research is needed. But from what we've already seen, what NIOSH has already done regarding this stuff, like it's a really, you have to think big picture when you're starting this career, because this stuff is going to affect you. It's going to affect your family, and everything you do early on is really how you're going to end up being later on. If you take all these steps, reduce your risk. If you're able to get that gear that is fluorine free, if you're able to use foam that's fluorine free, if you're able to mask up all the time, use your exhaust systems, all that stuff is going to benefit you in the long run. But it's hard to accept that when you're a 20-year-old kid. You got your whole world of you, and you think you're invincible. Nothing can deter you. And it's so trying to think about that serious of events down the road 25, 30 years later, it's hard to talk about with these kids about family when, again, they're 20 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. I was reading the last two issues of one of the trades. And in this trade, every month they list line of duty deaths that occurred in a period before that issue was printed. And in the last two, I was heartbroken to see how many firefighters we lost were in their 20s or early 30s. Now, most of these had nothing to do with cancer. These were accidents, driving to a call, coming back from a call, in their personal cars. Other things that happen, medical issues that occurred. But the fact is that I've been reading this trade for 40, would you say 46 years, right?
46 years.
46 years, right? So
I
my
just
son's
I just
77.
took my age and added 2 years. That's all I did, Steve. I'm not a
Right.
genius.
All right. So good. I'm way older than that then. But the fact is, that the we why are we saying, yeah, we know that what we do in this vocation or avocation of ours is risky, and there's an inherent danger. There's inherent danger when you go get in your car and you go to drive to your doctor's office and go to the supermarket. But you pay attention, hopefully, and you get there safe and sound. You can't control all the variables, but you can be a good driver, careful driver, etc. All right. But these men and women are, why should a 29-year-old die of a cardiac arrest, sudden cardiac arrest? Okay. Now you're going to say, well, what about that football player last year? Yes. Sudden cardiac arrest based probably on the hit that he took, they believe. But the fact is, thank God, by doing CPR right away, he was revived, he's been rehabilitated, and he's playing ball. And I'm not a football guy because I grew up in Boston. It was the Boston Patriots. There was no such thing as the New England Patriots in those days. And they played at Fenway Park. If you ever want to see crappy football, it was being played at Fenway Park back in the 60s and very early 70s, before Schaefer Stadium was then called Schaefer Stadium was built. But it hurts to read that listing and see young people who are losing their life to medical issues, and but yet they've dedicated that life, whatever those years were, to protecting their communities. So if you look at that, a lot of people drive by a fire station and still think, oh, they're playing checkers because there's no calls. I can see all the apparatus in the base. So they're just hanging out. That really doesn't yet. Did that happen in my day in our volunteer department? Yeah. But that really doesn't happen as much today, especially in career departments, no matter their size. Whether has one engine and maybe a tanker, or one engine and a quint and one rescue that has 5 stations, whatever. Today, it's a lot different. Also, luckily, based on what Jim also told us, is that our stations are being designed to be healthier now. So you're not allowed in these new stations in the last probably 5 years or so, you can't carry contaminated gear from one place to another. When you come in, you take the gear that was either put in the bag or that you're coming off the call from in a special place. It's going to be taken care of either in-house with the washers, the extractors, or it's going to be sent out for that to be done, being taken care of. But there's positive pressure ventilation. There's so many things that the architects have helped fire departments with in designing stations to keep firefighters healthier, that we see that, as Jim said, people are taking bites of the apple. It's no longer a poison apple that we can't talk about. Now we know what it is, we know what it's doing, and now it's time that we do what we can to help protect the men and women who choose this line of either work or don't, contribution to their communities. Because it doesn't make any difference if you're a career volunteer, by the way, folks. Okay? You can get just as sick and possibly lose your life.
Fire is a fire is a fire.
Right. Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you are, how big your town community is, how small it is. The danger is always going to be there. The danger that you see. And now, hopefully, you're going to be aware of a danger that you can't see, but is still prevalent right now.
That's part of, Steve, I think part of it is part of the problem is, and I kind of mentioned this before, that latency period, that 20, 25, 30 years before this stuff shows up. It would be, if it was like breaking an ankle, I think it would be a lot different. If, if you throw up a ladder on the side of the building, you fall off the ladder, you break your ankle, it's very obvious to know when and where and how you broke that ankle. It's clear as day. There's no dispute. It's right there. It's not that way when it comes to cancer. I can't tell you what fire or fires or PFAS or what or genetics. I don't know. I don't know why and how I got my cancer. I don't know. And I'll never know. And that is frustrating. If there's a very clear cause and effect, that'll change how you function and do things. It's just not that clear. I mean, we do this job, we can try to do the best we can, but all in all, when it comes down to it, we are crossing our fingers and just hoping that it doesn't affect us, that we can get out and be healthy and have a good time afterwards. It's a weird world that we are in. It really is.
Oh yeah, way different from our parents. And it's funny. Our parents, I'm sure most of our parents told us the same thing. You'll see what it's like when you grow up. You're going to see what real life is like when you grow up.
All right? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still growing up. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
There you go. There you go. All right, folks, we're going to take a break here. If you're watching the video, you're not going to see anything different. If you're watching to the audio, if you're listening to the audio, you know how we usually do it. We take a little break, a couple of PSAs, and then we're going to be right back with our guest, Jim Bernecka, as we talk about today, 2020, towards the last quarter of 2023, where are we in the fire service regarding our health and wellness? So we'll be right back with Jim right after these words. Please stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to this episode of 5-Alarm Task Force. My guest is Jim Bernecka, a former firefighter with Dayton and paramedic with Dayton Fire in Ohio. I wasn't too far away when I was living in Cincinnati. I didn't know Jim back then in those days. But matter of fact, I didn't even realize that where I was living in Cincinnati, I had two great firefighters right around me. Chief Billy Goldfeder was around the corner. I didn't even realize that. As was Josh Blum. And I only wish I did try to get to a volunteer fire department back in those days when I was living in Cincinnati, outside the city, but they only wanted people in daytime. They needed more people in daytime. They had enough for the nighttime. I was a student at the University of Cincinnati, so I couldn't put in that daytime. But when I got to Greensboro a year later, that's when it happened. So in this first segment, if you've been listening along, we've been talking about kind of like the past coming up to today with firefighter health and wellness. Thankfully, over the last couple of years, we've launched a really great firefighter cancer initiative around the country. We have a great team in Florida here. They've been on the show several times. Dr. Alberto Caban Martinez heads it up down here in Florida. And he is just such a go-getter on it. And we, in many states now, have, and cities too, have great medical communities working with them on the cancer initiative. But we also started a few years ago the behavioral health initiative. Sadly, we are still losing too many of our brothers and sisters to their own hand. So we're not covering that topic here, but please, if you have questions or concerns about somebody, or if it's you and you have these mixed up thoughts, please reach out. There is help at your department. There is help in your community. There is help nationally. Please, please, please don't do anything rash. Talk to one of your officers. Talk to your chief. Talk to your clergy. there are people willing to help. But now we need to come back right now and focus on the Cancer Initiative and where we are with PFAS. And during the break, Jim brought up something that I was unaware of, that I think it's imperative, as he put it, that we need to get the word out there. So Jim, let's let our listeners and viewers know this little tidbit that you shared with me during the break.
Yeah, sure, Steve. You know, the IFF we talked about in the first part of this, you know, suing NFPA and just kind of, you know, being on the forefront and being really the loudest and proudest speaker regarding this stuff. But it hasn't just stopped there. The IFF received a grant, and the grant is for the next generation of PPE. So trying to just completely reinvent what we're doing, what we're used to, and make really what should be the future of PPE. You know, nothing to do with NFPA. Let's just basically put some ideas together, put some stuff together, and go from there. And so we had I was asked to be part of the committee. It's actually a pretty small committee, at least right now. And we had our first meeting at the IFF Redmond conference in New York last month. And we're going to have our next follow-up meeting in November at the IFF headquarters in DC. And so you have, I know Jason Burns has been a guest of you before from Fall Rivers, Massachusetts. He's on it with me. Just a handful of kind of the big players, I guess, that really have been passionate about this whole PFAS and the fire gear and just trying to get rid of it. They're all part of this, and we're all going to be working together to figure out a safe alternative and what's next. And I have no idea where it's going to go, but it's certainly exciting to be part of this. Yeah, it'll be interesting. All sorts of different ideas. We had a meeting at Redmond where we brought in people from throughout really every district, so U.S. and Canada, and they kind of laid out what their problems was with the gear, what worked, what didn't work, and what they'd like to see, and kind of gave us our marching orders of what to try to put together. So not only is the IFF doing their best to change the way that this is regarded in NFPA, but they're also, you know, trying to actually come up with a solution themselves. You know, it's not just talk, they're actually walking the walk. And I'm just honored to be part of this. You know, when you retire, you know, you search for kind of your purpose, what you're going to do next. And I know this is really, for me, it's one of the big things of how I can still stay involved on a really large scale and hopefully make some good that impacts the entire fire service.
Yeah, I think that's so important, because we know that anything that our career departments and people work towards will have the trickle down effect into our part pay and our volunteer departments as well. Because as difficult as it is for our municipal fire departments to find funding to buy new gear and things like that, it's in many volunteer departments today. Matter of fact, they're more worried actually about personnel numbers than even gear, because volunteering has dropped dramatically. But it's still important that the men and women who still volunteer or are part pay, and our brothers and sisters in WUI as well, that they know that they can rely on gear that is safe, that will protect them the way our bunker gear is supposed to, and will also not be a risk to them because of what it was made with. And to know that the IAFF is working so diligently on this. And, you know, this is not just the vocal part of what we heard from the vote 2 years ago, and which was groundbreaking. I mean, I don't think that any firefighters who had been following this didn't just jump up and yell hooray when that happened. But the fact is that now we want to make sure that all firefighters, whether we're career or we do it out of the goodness of our hearts, or we're part, paid on call, whatever, can have faith and confidence in their gear to protect them from the jobs we do without hurting them from the inside out. And I think that's to know that this committee and the fact that you're on, and I with you and Jason there, I think we have two of the greatest voices for firefighter cancer prevention and avoidance that any committee could have.
I mean, Steve, it's been really, really interesting. When you a lot of people don't realize this, like, our gear, so we know right now comes to PFAS. It's already contaminated when you get it out of the bag. We know that. But then you start fighting fires with it, and if you do a good job of cleaning, you throw it in the extractor. Well, guess what? Like, we've realized that how clean is clean. It when you throw your gear in an extractor, it's only taking off about half the chemicals and carcinogens on that. Like, your gear is always going to be dirty, is always going to be contaminated. It doesn't matter if you wash it. It just doesn't matter. You still want to wash it to get some of that stuff off, but it's always going to be dirty. The only, I think, way that they've been able to really clean it and do a good job and get rid of about 98% of that is doing the CO washing.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
But that is super expensive to do, and it just isn't the most realistic right now. So there's even, when you're listening to this feedback from the IFF members in New York, the question came up, like, are we able to come up with just disposable fire gear? Wear it one time and throw it away. Because even now, the fire gear we have now, in some ways, and this could be a big argument, and I'm not trying to set up an argument or anything, but sometimes it seems like it's actually too good. We're going further than we ever have. We're taking more chances than we ever have, because we're not really feeling the heat like we used to. So is there? Yes.
Thermometers.
For those listening, Steve pointed to his ears. That used to be the way. And it's just hard to really tell that. So there's even talk about kind of getting that back down to a safe level to where we're not going that deep. We're not taking those unnecessary chances. So it will be, again, we're just on the very beginning stages of this, and it's, I believe, a 1.5-year project right now. So we'll see, what happens. But I can tell you, I'm excited. I'm excited to be part of this. I'm excited to be working with the people that are in there. It's going to not just be firefighters. It's going to be researchers. It's going to be people from different organizations that have done really well with PPE as well. So we're going to have people from NASA in there, people from Formula One racing. So we're going to have all sorts of different people kind of chiming in and showing what they have been able to do. And we're going to see if that can somehow relate to the fire equipment that we have, to our gear. So
that will be very exciting and very telling, because it would to think that our own brothers and sisters can play a major role in we can't totally eliminate it yet 100%, but by mitigating some of that exposure through various concepts, I think is just a brilliant concept in and of itself. Let's see what we can do so that we're not wearing that same gear all the time.
yes,
and that we have better ways to take care of it when we come back from a working fire call. We know most departments are requiring shower within the hour for personnel, and there are other steps being taken that we talked about even in the first segment. But to know that it might only be a peephole, but there's a little bit of light at the end of that tunnel is exciting. It really is for those of us who've been on the battlegrounds for this, to know that we have people from, and especially this what you just mentioned about from other facets that have nothing to do with firefighting working with us. Uh, that committee, I think it's brilliant to bring it in. I know one of the things that always bugged me, and I enjoy NASCAR. I'm not a crazy fanatic, but I enjoy watching the races. And if it's always bothered me when there's been an auto fire and the safety crews come out, but they're not wearing self-contained breathing apparatus. And it bugs the hell out of me because in the first segment, we talked about my story when I got the snoot full, and that chief started that in 1977, that we had to wear air packs when we do a car fire. And yet I have yet to see in the last 3 years, and I've been watching NASCAR since 2001. And I started commenting about this on social media about 3 years ago, and have not seen any changes. And there have been several fires in those 3 years, a couple of big fires, and they come out and they're spraying their ansols and stuff like that, but they're not wearing breathing apparatus. And you talk about plastic, those cars, they have some sheet metal, but a lot of the body is plastic. And we all know, we in the fire service know what happens when plastic burns. So that just bugs me. But to know that you have people from the Formula One teams coming in, and they see it often as well, I think that's just a brilliant idea.
Just that was kind of a pet peeve of yours. One of mine would be just simply people complaining but not offering a solution.
Yeah.
So the IFF has absolutely complained to NFPA and anybody that would listen to them. But I love that them doing this is showing that they're trying to figure out a solution as well.
Well, that's the key, because I think over the last few years, a lot of us lost our faith in NFPA to protect firefighters. So if this is the first big forward step to change that, I applaud them for it.
NFPA, it really just needs to hit the whole reset button on the whole thing. It's the way they do things, how they do things. It's just not conducive. I mean, again, you get into this business and you feel like you can trust them, that they're going to be looking out for you, that they care. And once you get in there and you do a deep dive, you realize that it's mostly researchers, it's mostly manufacturers, and they really work a lot of times together. And the actual firefighter, the end user, what this standard is about, are a minority. And it shouldn't be that way. And they make it difficult, all these manufacturers, all those researchers, like, their companies, their universities are paying for them to attend. Who do you think's paying for the firefighters to show up? A lot of times it's them.
Exactly.
So that's why there's just not a lot of them. And then you still have that's how they classify people. Like, I'm sorry, if you're 60 something years old and you haven't wore fire gear in 25 years, how are you still considered a user? Shouldn't be that way, but that's
Right.
how it is. So I love the fact that the IFF has really put the pressure on NFPA and have been calling them out, and be interesting to see what goes on. But you said it early on, it's a business to them.
Yeah.
And this isn't a business to me. This is my life. And I want to make sure that those people are doing things on the up and up and actually looking out for me, looking out for my family. And
Yeah.
I can say with confidence now that, knowing what I know, it hasn't been that way. And it's just a machine. And they're always going to have that excuse of, well, it's not us, it's the committee. We don't actually do anything. It's up to the members. And I just don't buy it anymore. Don't buy it.
Yeah. We all, I think we all fell for that. Growing up in the fire service over I can talk about my nearly 50 years ago. Yeah, we were told this is NFPA standard this. I remember when I first got there, we were still riding the back step on two of our apparatus. And then the chief, there was a meeting and the chief said, gentlemen, because we didn't have any ladies back in that day, gentlemen, we can no longer ride the back step of the engine 172 with a tanker. So luckily they both happen to have interior seats as well, but it was just, the history of riding the back step. I mean, listen, I knew it was dangerous, but what kid 25 years old just became a firefighter wouldn't want to ride that back step on one of their first couple of calls and hold on to that strap? So yeah, was it exciting? Yeah, it was great. But was there a chance I'm gonna get? Yeah, because one of our guys missed the step one time trying to get on as the engine was pulling out. So he fell and got hurt, but not seriously, thank goodness. But at that point, the chief said, okay, nobody can get on a moving vehicle. If you don't get on it by the time it starts, you're not getting on it. That's it. Go in the next piece going to the call. And so he was pretty forthright about that and enforced that strictly. But it kind of, it took kind of like the wind out of the sail for a couple of weeks. Oh man, that was so much fun just holding on to that strap and riding that back. But it was right. It was the right decision, and I understand it. But we would see these paperwork, NFPA standard this, NFPA standard that. We got to do this, gentlemen. We got to do this, gentlemen. Okay, they're the ones who know what's good for us, so we'll follow whatever they tell us about the hose and about this and about that. Let's do it. So there was no reason why back in those days you wouldn't trust them. We only had our eyes opened over the past 5-6 years. Look at the man behind the curtain.
Very much so.
Look at the man behind the curtain, because that's what it is. And folks, it's imperative that we also share this. And Jim mentioned our brothers and sisters in Canada. I've been very lucky enough to have several of them on the show. As a matter of fact, I have next week, we're doing another show on firefighter behavioral initiative and how to lead, even as a firefighter, a police officer, paramedic, EMT, full time, how to have a little bit more fulfilling and a better mental life for yourself. Andy Clark will be on next week, and we'll be talking about that again. And while we are human and we make ourselves brave and we go into these calls, we're human and we're still frail in many ways. And we have to understand that. And, Jim will know this from when he started too, is that when I started, the total behavioral health support was suck it up. Those 3 words. That was behavioral health science 101 in those days.
They added a buttercup at the end for me.
Oh, buttercup. Okay, there you go.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah.
But today we can't do that. We can't afford to, because we need to take care of all our firefighters and all their health. No, I'm not saying we're paying for it. I'm saying we have to be concerned as brothers and sisters in this family. And if you don't see us as a family, either you've been in too long or you've been in too short, because the first time you have an issue in your life and you're a member, and I found this in the volunteer department, I was the first, my buddy and I were the first Jewish people even approached this department in the Bible Belt. Yet the support I had back in those days when I was even more observant was wonderful. It was I felt like I was in another home with my department because every one of them respected me for my beliefs, helped me out when they could. And that's what family is about. And we are a family when push comes to shove. But we also have to know that sometimes in a family, there are disagreements and sometimes tough things happen. But if we're, as a family, we keep together, we stay supportive as an organization and as people, then we can basically surmount any challenge that's put before us. What Jim brought up a very great point about retirement, since he just recently retired. And that is that almost every time I see good wishes on social media to an officer or a firefighter or a chief who's retiring, and they give them that congratulations on social media, I always respond by saying, wishing you a long, healthy, and fulfilling retirement. That's what I write. I have a little piece of paper. That's what I want to write because that's what I wish for them. Unfortunately, too many of our brothers and sisters who retire might have a short-term happy retirement until they get an unhappy medical diagnosis. And what we're talking about today is to try to ease that from happening. We're not just talking about the NFPA. We're not just talking about PFAS. This whole discussion today with Jim on those topics, though, is about overall health and wellness for our brothers and sisters. That's what we care about. We want them to go get to every call safely. We want them to come home from every call safely. Get back to the firehouse. Take care of themselves. Use the washes. Use the extractor. Do whatever you can to follow the health advisories and practice and best practices. That's what we hope for, so that you do have a long and fulfilling career. And maybe you go climb up the ladder. That would be great. Nothing would make us happier. Just be well and be satisfied and happy with what you do, and that you'll be able to take care of yourself and your family and the people you care about. That's what this whole discussion boils down to.
Yeah.
You know,
Very nicely said, Steve.
thanks.
You know, I think I look back throughout my career and I just think of just how times have changed. You know, the guys early on worked every overtime they possibly could. Never said no. You know, if they had an opportunity to work, doesn't matter if it's Susie's birthday, I'm working. And it even, you know, that attitude even went into, you know, the drop program. So in Ohio, we have the opportunity to work, you know, we get our 25 years and then we have you can work up to 8 more years and basically be double dipping, be retired, but still working. And as a firefighter, if you do that 8 years, just as a firefighter, you're walking away with $350,000, $400,000 in a bank, you know, account just waiting for you. Because it basically just takes your pension and instead of giving it to you, it's just throwing it all in that bank account. So I saw early on a lot of my guys sticking around and trying to do that 8 years, get all that money. But then they get all that money, they retire, and what happens?
They get sick.
They get sick. They die. And it's happened enough where I'm at to where the guys that I came on with, I mean, the attitude is like, I'm getting my 25 and I'm running away. I am getting out as soon as I possibly can because they've seen it over and over and over and over again of this same broken record of somebody staying too long, getting sick, dying, and you're left with that. And I've said it already. Well, what's the point? Why even do all this if you're not going to be able to enjoy it? If you're not going to be there for your grandkids, if you're not going to be able to walk your daughter down the aisle, whatever it may be, you know, what is your purpose? What is your why? And really is, I think another thing it comes down to is money everything. And I could tell you, my guys and gals in Dayton, took a while, but I think they've realized money isn't everything. These new kids and some of these old kids, I'd say now, turn down overtime. They realize their time off is more valuable than however much an overtime is now. So, wow, that was a tangent. I don't even know how I started on that, but there, there you go.
No, it's part of what we're talking
you get
about.
you get two guys with podcast shows, and we can just press start and we'll just go.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I think today we've really provided some good news for our listeners and viewers, and hopefully that includes some of our brothers and sisters who watch it or listen to it. And I have no doubt about the audience you have with on Fire Engineering. They do great podcasts there, folks, and you really should check them out. And they're so frequent. It just, they have so much. The two major trades, especially, have lots of stuff available in both for firefighter health and wellness, and in general, including our behavioral health and the cancer initiative. And you know, a lot of people just turn to the pictures. They want to see the pictures in the trades. You got to read. You got to read some of there's such great articles about firefighter health and the behavioral health and cardiac issues and cancer issues.
Let me plug that real quick.
Sure.
I'm sorry I cut you off.
No,
that's
please,
rude.
No, not at all. Not in this show.
Speaking of articles and trade, I've got an article coming out in December about creating or enhancing your fire department's wellness program. So it'll be in the fire engineering in December, and really the idea is kind of start from scratch. If you don't have a wellness program already in your department, where do you even start? And it just goes from there. And it covers, there's so many. I mean, we're really on this episode, we've talked a little about behavioral health. We talked a lot about cancer, but I mean, there's so many more components of wellness, whether it's sleep, whether it's fitness, whether it's nutrition, just building resiliency, financial wellness. I mean, all these things really equal out what wellness truly is. So that article will be coming out in December, and I'm hoping that it goes well for everybody. I hope people get something out of it. I taught that class at FDIC this year, and I think I'll have a webinar with fire engineering sometime in, I think, January. I mean, they booked me out in January. I don't know really what I'm doing tomorrow, but I know in January I'm doing that.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, we're talking about that. I have one coming out either late this month or, well, it's already late September, so it'll probably be next month with our Canadian neighbors at Crackle Magazine. And,
oh yeah, Corey.
Yeah, Corey Perret.
Yeah.
Nice guy. We've struck a nice bargain together, but I was looking for a place for this article that talks about what happens when we retire or we were disabled out before we want to be. And that's under the behavioral health initiative of what's it like when, like you said, you work 25 years, you're a firefighter, you go, I've recalled, and then all of a sudden you're no longer a working firefighter. And that's part of the issue we have in behavioral health today, because a firefighter after 25 years, that guy or gal, what am I doing now? I got nothing. I was a firefighter. I did this. What do I got now? The flower bed, and it's a big issue. Or like I got a disabled out after 8 years. I felt useless. I loved doing what I was doing, and then got hurt, and that was the end of it. So this whole issue supposedly in the fall is going to be about the concepts of wellness and behavioral health in it. And I was very thrilled that Corey's going to be on in a couple of weeks as well on this show, and then I've been invited to be on Chief Arjuna George outside of Vancouver
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
on his beneath the helmet, right? And it's all
Yeah.
about the firefighter behavioral health.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Initiative. So I think that bringing these articles to the masses, talking about issues that people don't often want to talk about, but they know it's reality. It's wearing the blinders, I think can help us issue by issue, article by article.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight, but each of us contributing, and there are wonderful contributors out here to these trades. I mean, I read basically every single article, even if it doesn't apply to me anymore, because why am I going to read an article about roof pitches if I'm not a firefighter? Because some firefighter sat down to write that article about the way they see a safer way to do roof pitches, and I think that's important to me. So I'll read it anyway. But I think that now that a lot of the trades are working towards helping us and concentrating on overall firefighter health and wellness, I think is a great stride that they've taken. And if you are a firefighter or were a firefighter, and there's something that you want to contribute, don't be afraid to write an article and submit it. Not every article is going to be accepted by every trade, but try. If you have something valid to say, put it out
Yeah.
there.
I mean, if nothing else, a lot of times they print it online.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times people prefer that. For me, I could tell you, having something actually in the magazine was just kind of a bucket list thing for me. But out of the couple I've had in print, I've had probably a dozen that just went online, but it still was impactful.
Yeah.
And regarding all this stuff, whether it's behavioral health, cancer, I mean, what it comes down to really, I think, is vulnerability welcomes vulnerability. If people are able to open up and share whatever they went through, it allows somebody else to do the same. It welcomes it. It opens up the door, if you will. So on all these articles, all these podcasts, if you're able to do that, if you're able to have somebody that's really truly open and honest and will share the unshareables, others will too. They may not do it live in person right there, but you may get a call, the minute you walk out of the room or the very next day, whatever it may be. So I think that's the key to a lot of this stuff is just being open and honest and putting it out there.
Yeah.
My journey through all this it's definitely a journey, and there's a lot of good in there and there's a lot of bad. But it's something that, I know I've evolved from, and I hope that other people could learn from my mistakes and not make the same mistakes themselves. I think that's what we all want.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
This is the reason we do this stuff. We talk about this stuff is to put information out there. Fire engineering, we talked about that being on the podcast family with them. They are probably 98% tactics, leadership. I mean, their shows are about that. I'm really one of two. Stephanie White and myself are really the two that are out there just talking about everything else that's not tactics. So it's, I think they saw a hole there, and Bobby Holland was willing to give me a chance. God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And I'm really still to this day appreciative of just the opportunity he's given me to share this and share it on a pretty big platform. So
yeah, it is that plus.
So it's
teaching.
we talked about retirement. I think the first thing is, I've got little boys still, 7 and 10, little guys. So everything is now revolves around them, which is great. Like this summer was a blast. Just every day waking up and trying to figure out what adventure we're going to do. But beyond that, still staying involved, still doing the podcast, still, working with the IFF. I'm going to hopefully become an IFF peer support instructor. I actually put the
Excellent.
application in last week. So I'm still like, I still feel, and I know you feel the same way, Steve, is I have more to give. It's just I have to do things differently now than
Yeah.
I did previously. So I'm still trying to kind of learn that, and I'm still trying to be active and busy, but at the same time, not be anywhere near as busy as I used to be.
Right.
Like finding that happy medium. So I'm still trying to kind of navigate that. I have my health and wellness conference that I help put on with Brothers Helping Brothers. That's coming up next month. So that's where a lot of my attention is. And we're actually going to be showing Burned there and have a lot of the panel people, a lot of people. You've had Jason and Graham and Rob and all those guys on your show. They're going to be live with me in Beaver Creek, Ohio, exotic Beaver Creek, Ohio.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm
So
thrilled
I
to hear
mean,
that.
doing all that kind of stuff, I think is uh, been helpful in the transition of just being, just instead of firefighter or wellness coordinator Bernica to just being Jim
Yeah.
and but still being involved and still doing things.
Yeah. That's that's why I did this. It was a way to give a little bit back to what I love to do. It meant a lot to me, and uh, people from social media started saying, "Well, you had radio background, you should do a podcast." And I said, "Great, okay, what's a podcast?" And when I learned AV, it was analog, and my audio tape was 1 inch wide in those days. My videotape was 2 inches wide. Um, so learning, and even though I knew all about computers since '83, I had no idea what a podcast was, and so there was a steep learning curve. And then I, early on, I was able to, thanks to a good friend and great supporter of this podcast, Chief Dennis Rubin, um, got the late Chief Bruno on the podcast, and I thought that was it. I thought that was the culmination. I couldn't have a better show than to have Chief Bruno on, and he was great on that show. And but it Chief Rubin said, you're bringing him to the people. He's on the phone with you on your podcast.
Yeah.
He said, this is what you're doing, Steve. You're helping the fire service. You're giving back to that fire service you love because you can and you know how, and you're giving them good people to listen to and good topics and stuff like that. He goes, don't stop that. So here we are in the early part of season 8,
Yeah.
and never thought be doing this long. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
grateful that I am.
I'm thinking I'm a little over 4 years into in my shows, and I mean, there's a really good library and so much information, so many researchers or subject matter experts. But I also think I love the fact to think that I'm leaving a positive digital footprint. I love,
Yeah,
I know I'm not going to be here, and this is now probably going to be a little morbid, but I know I'm not going to be here forever. But these shows will, and my boys will always be able to hear me. They can always hear what's going on with me, how I was feeling then.
yeah.
Like I'm leaving them a little bit of me that I think that's going to be pretty cool.
I think I agree. I agree. Jim, I can't thank you enough for taking time. Yes, I know you're retired, but you still have a very busy schedule. So I really appreciate it coming back, and I'm glad that we're fighting on the same team. Our goal is education because that's what we do today, and the more we educate, the better chance we have of one more person listening and hearing the message and taking it to heart.
Absolutely. You are the highlight of my day. I'll let you know.
Well, thank you very much. That's very
It's
kind.
beyond that. It's I don't know if you have the same kind of setup, but now it's like, okay, I got to do laundry. I got to do dishes. I got to make the bed. Like I have my honey to-do list. I got to knock that out before I can do any of the other junk that I want to try to do.
So, did I help you with avoiding some of those tasks already this
You
morning?
just postponed it. That's
Okay,
all.
there we go.
That's postponed it. I still
Right.
have time.
Right.
Or I do the famous the wife's coming home in 30 minutes. I better get everything ready. Act like I did something instead of just binge a show on Netflix.
Yeah, I know. My wife still works full time as well. So I know it's like, all right, my friend, thank you again. I really appreciate it. Great talking with you. A good thank you for sharing some great news, the new committee and some of the other work that you're doing and working with. When you say next time you say hello to Jason, and if you talk with Schmitz at all, give them my best, please, because they're near and dear in my heart. They really are.
No problem.
We never would have made the impact we did on the Firefighter Cancer Initiative without them and our D lady,
Yes.
Diane. So, folks, we thank you for tuning in for this episode, as we always do. It means a great deal to us. If you're watching the video, this will be the end of the video. If you're listening to the audio, well, you'll know that we'll have a little break and there'll be a couple more features that will be coming up after that. But we thank you for tuning in. We hope that especially today's episode, we've given you some food for thought. What we care about is that you take care of yourselves. If you're a firefighter, that you take care of yourself. If you're a retired firefighter, we're hoping that you're having a great retirement, that you're healthy, but take care of yourself still. Remember, what happened then, we don't know. All micro, teeny tiny. Gonna come back and bite us in the butt at any time. But just keep taking care of yourself. Stay safe. Be well. And as always, we say, let's make sure everyone goes home. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week. Bye-bye now.